What's good, everybody, and welcome into your favorite hour of the entire week. And yes, we wait until Friday to give it to you. When I look into the chat right now, I see Jason, I see Steve, I see Andy, I see Al, MR. Jason M says, Coach, I wait for this entire week. Well, guess what, Jason? So do we. This is our NFL Weekly Prop Special Show, part of the Early Edge brand. We're powered by the almighty SportsLine, the best value in all of sports betting, and it's not even close. We're also the most transparent show because we actually talk about the picks we made and don't just move on. So last week, another profitable week, 6-4 total. Prop Stars, another 4-1 week, 8-2 for Alex the last 2 weeks. So I know Uncle Dave is not going to take that laying down today because he's a competitor. So with that being said, let's bring in the stars of the show. You know him. You love him. From the award-winning show, Fantasy Football Today, he is our very own Uncle Dave. Dave Richard, welcome once again to the
Coach, it's great to be here. I got a problem with the graphic that you just put up, and maybe this is something for the jeweler to take a double look at. Could someone please tell me how many yards Jacoby Myers had in week number 7? Anybody out there who can tell me what was the number?
43 or 42?
59.
Where I come from, 43 or 42 is under 60 and a half. Why is there an ugly red X?
Let's put it back up. Let's put it back up.
Let's not put it up if it's wrong. Then that's
no. I just said we're transparent, so we've got to be transparent here. So you're saying that we have your record wrong, is what you're saying. I know that Myers was a winner because I played it. I played every pick. So we were 7-3. Oh, so we were see. That's how good we are, Dave. That we were actually hurting ourselves. Most people just say they win everything. Not us. No. We're taking losses away from your record. So let's correct that. 7-3 last week. You're very welcome. And our apologies from the bosses. Yeah. Our apologies.
There's something else that I need to say.
Talk to
everybody is watching to find out which kicker prop we're taking. That includes, at the very minimum, Caesar Sportsbook. Go take a look on their book right now. You can barely find any kicker props. They're waiting to hear what I have to say on kicker props, Coach, and my lips are sealed. I know which kickers I like this week, but until they put up every kicker prop that's available, I'm not telling anybody. I'm not telling Alex. I'm not telling you. I'm not telling the jeweler. Don't even ask my wife. She doesn't know. She doesn't know what a player prop is. She barely knows what a kicker is.
We do know there are a lot of wives in the chat that love to comment. So if you are a wife and you are watching the show right now, I want you to write in the chat, Uncle Dave, tell me the kicker props. Nope. Apparently, he's not even telling wives.
I'm not saying the first move has to be made by the sports books. When they put out their kicker props, that's when I'll start blabbing. But I got names, and they're coming.
Hey,
you
Dave.
Just aren't going to get them on this show right now.
Dave, we all know you never stop blabbing. We all know that. Now, Pooh Bear says, Coach, put some respect on Dave Dalla's name. So my bad, because Pooh Bear has your back.
Of course, Pooh Bear's got my back.
Something I never thought we'd hear on a show.
Pooh Bear, man. We're like this since day one.
Oh, now this man has created a cult following all to his own. We can't even control the amount of people that are waiting for this man to show up every single show. We affectionately call him Prop Stars. Alex, welcome back to your show.
What is good, Coach? Uncle Dave. I'm so happy to be here. I look forward to this all week. As all of you guys know, a little bit of housekeeping. My weekly column that I write for SportsLine, I only write one column a week. It contains 5 of my favorite props every week. Just dropped a few minutes ago. Check that out if you have a SportsLine subscription. Also, 8-2 over the past 2 weeks, but 27-9 overall this season on this show.
Dave, that sounds like a challenge to me.
Oh, man. Listen, I want to be Alex when I grow up. I've just started on this player prop venture, and I got to give myself another pat on the back. I gave out a couple of player props on Fantasy Football Today. We do it every Thursday before the Thursday night games. That show's on at noon Eastern on CBS Sports HQ. If you play fantasy football, you should be watching it.
That's where I want the early edge to be when we grow up. when we grow up, I want to be on CBS Sports HQ. But we'll get there. We'll get there just like you guys. All right, let's get into it right now because we got a lot of props to get to. We've got a lot. And if we get to a game and you have a prop that you are interested in or you want us to hit, as you know, put it into the comments section. Let's also pound that like button. As many of you know who watch every single day, it's so important to the growth of the show. I also need you. Follow SportsLine on Twitter. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And also leave your Twitter handle in the chat because when we get to 200 likes, I'm going to give away 2 year-long memberships to SportsLine, and there is no value on that. If we get to 400 likes in this hour, then I'll give away 4 more memberships. You get all the analysis, you get all the cappers, all the information for free for a year, but you've got to play by the rules. All right, guys, let's get into our first game. We're going to go Steelers-Browns. The number is -3.5. The total sitting on 42. Alex, you and Dave are on the same player, but different correlated props. So, Alex, I'm going to let you go first. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm on Steelers tight end Pat Freiermuth over 21.5 receiving yards. Freiermuth appears to be the next version of Heath Miller, if you guys are familiar with the great Pittsburgh tight end for so long. They profile very similarly. He's got a very, very reliable pair of hands. Freiermuth is coming off of a breakout campaign last week. He handled 7 targets, turned that into 7 catches for 58 yards. He has been hyper efficient this season. He's had 20 targets. He's turned those 20 targets into 18 catches on the season. He's also eclipsed this total in 4 of 6 games as well. Eric Ebron, who splits reps with Freiermuth, is a late addition to the injury report this week. He is questionable to play. Even if he does play, I still like this prop a ton. Ebron's only had 47 yards on the season so far, so Freiermuth is the preferred option. He's the preferred receiving tight end in this offense. But obviously, if Ebron were to miss the game, his absence would give Freiermuth an additional boost. Also, the absence of Juju Smith-Schuster is also creating additional opportunities for Freiermuth. He's running a lot of those high percentage routes over the middle of the field that I love to see. Like I mentioned, he has a very reliable set of hands. He has chemistry with Big Ben. He went to college at Penn State, Western Pennsylvania, as we know. He just reminds me so much of Heath Miller. We saw how great Heath Miller was in this offense for like a decade. I also love that Uncle Dave is on this prop. I expect Freiermuth's role to continue to expand in this offense. He's going to be a security blanket and safety valve for Big Ben, who needs a reliable target in the middle of the field.
By the way, remind me to tell you one of these days, one of my favorite WWE stories happened in State College at Penn State. It's one of the great all-time stories. I'll tell it on the show when we have a couple of minutes. All right, Dave, now you just got the stamp of approval from Alex about your player prop in this game. So the floor is yours.
I love Alex's player prop, but if you don't like laying juice, I don't even know if that makes sense. Go with this one with Pat Freiermuth. It's even money over 2.5 receptions for Pat Freiermuth. And the way that Alex detailed Freiermuth as the next Heath Miller, man, that's spot on. Because when you watch Pat Freiermuth play, he's a giant out there. He is a big, short area target that Ben Roethlisberger is going to lean on. He did it in the preseason, but more importantly, and Alex talked about this too, that first game without Juju Smith-Schuster, 7 targets. And not just 7 targets, Coach. 7 catches, 58 yards. All he has to do is get you 3 grabs. He's done that in 3 of his last 5 games. A lot of that came with Juju on the field, by the way. Now Juju's gone, and Freiermuth is going to continue to play a large role. He's run at least 22 routes in 4 of his last 5 games. And Cleveland's allowed at least 3 catches to a tight end in each of their last 4 games. Only Arizona didn't do it this year, and they didn't really have a tight end. Max Williams was hurt. They just acquired Zach Ertz. Ertz wasn't allowed to play in that game. They literally didn't have a good tight end for that game against the Cleveland Browns. So I'm pretty sure Freiermuth's going to play. Pretty certain he's going to come out of the bye week with a big role in that Steelers offense. This one is something that the sports books need to react to, and they will react quickly. So get it in as soon as you see this video. Freiermuth over 2.5 catches at even money.
Repeat that nugget. The last 4 games, the Browns have allowed at least 3 catches.
At least 3 catches to a tight end. I wrote here in their last 4 games, but obviously there was a game in there against the Cardinals. I think it was 2 games ago. So it's
three or
probably
four.
three of the
Three or
last four
four.
games have allowed at least 3 catches.
That's next level. What do we say all the time, Alex? What do we say all the time? Educate,
Next level
entertain,
here.
baby. And next level. That's what we do right here. All right, quick chat question. Bucks just announced today Antonio Brown is out. Should we pound those Godwin props this week? Alex, go.
Those props, the numbers are already they have a Brown's absence already built into the number, so you're not getting an additional value. Brown was expected to miss this game. So yeah, Godwin's numbers are accounting for Brown's absence. That's not to say I don't like Godwin this week or that you shouldn't play his prop, but it's not a must play because his numbers are accounting for Brown's absence.
All right, very good. Dave, let me come to you. Jason, Najee Harris over 4.5 receptions, -150, a little juicy. Talk to me.
Yeah, it's too juicy for my taste. I think one of the great things about Freiermuth is that he gives Roethlisberger another short area target to lean on besides Najee. It takes a little bit of work away from Harris. It actually makes Harris a pass protector and Freiermuth someone that can run a route. And then they like Freiermuth because he's such a big target. Not that he's necessarily a great yards after catch type of tight end, but he's going to win those contested catches a lot. He's 6'5". He looks like an ox out there. He really just absolutely dominates size-wise against any DB and against a lot of linebackers too. So I'm not loving the juice on that one. If it was more like maybe if you could find it at like 5 flat at -115 or -120, I think I'd dabble on that.
Yeah, and you still don't have the losing proposition in that. You'd have the push proposition, but not the losing proposition. Alex, real quick, let me come back to you because a question on your Freiermuth prop. How high would you play it up to? David has it at 20. David has it at 22.5.
Yeah, I'm definitely comfortable at 22.5. I'd probably play it up to 24.5.
Okay, very
So
good.
you just have to remember with these lower numbers, like there's a lower kind of threshold for how much room you want to give in each direction if we're playing over and under. Obviously, if it's a low receiving total, you only want to go a couple yards in each direction versus if we're playing like a Cooper Kupp prop, for instance, and he's set at 90 yards and there's certain scenarios where he moves up to 96, 97, or it's still playable because that same percentage applies, from 20 to 23, from 90 to 98, for instance. So you want to be very careful with these lower totals.
Right,
Did something like that come into play last night with Aaron Jones? Because I got him at 58.5, and I know by kickoff he was in the 60s for his rushing prop.
Yeah, all of his numbers went up. His receiving numbers at 38.5. We gave it out all day, and then around 2 or 3 it went to 44. And luckily he still cashed it for everybody. But it absolutely happened last night. By the way, everybody, stop the presses. Sean has arrived in the chat. He's on every show. And he wants us to know he finished up his lecture at 2:00 and he made it into the chat. Sometimes I feel like some of our fans, their priorities are a little bit backwards, but we love it. We love it. So, Sean, it's good to see you got out of that lecture. I don't know if he's given the lecture or if he's in the lecture.
We're going to lecture him, Coach.
Yeah, you're damn right we are. Thank you. Next game. Here we go. I love it. Bengals.
I think Sean got out of the lecture because he's our same loyal fan who got excited whenever his professors have been canceling the 10 a.m. lectures.
Julia, that's a great point. The
So
great
shout
point.
out Sean. Who needs
Sean's
Shout
a
out
great
to
guy.
Sean. Yeah, that's why the jeweler runs the show. I'm not smart enough to think like that. I'm just not. But jeweler has everything under control. All right, game number 2. Bengals, double-digit favorites on the road. I saw something today on social media, like for the first time since 1982. This is crazy. At the Jets, 1 Eastern, the total at 43. Dave, I know you have 2 plays, one from each team, so I'll let you go first.
Let's start with the Jets because we like to get the pathetic team out of the way first. Michael Carter actually stepped up in his last game, played 72% of the snaps. That was a season high. That was a decision that the Jets coaches made coming out of the bye, was giving the rookie a little bit more work. And boy, did he get it. When Zach Wilson got pulled from the game because of injury, I shouldn't use the term pulled. It's not like it was by a coach's choice. Mike White came in, and Mike White started peppering both Carter and Ty Johnson with targets, and it led to an incredible receiving game for Michael Carter. 9 targets, 8 catches, 67 yards. I don't think that's necessarily repeatable, but I do think Michael Carter can still find 19 or more receiving yards. The prop is over 18.5 receiving yards. It's at -135. The juice, Coach, it's worth the squeeze. He's given you at least this many yards in I don't know where I have it. I had it here. I thought it was each of his last 2 games, at least 20 receiving yards. I do have it here. And Corey Davis is out for the Jets. That's more targets that White might check down to his running backs, and we know that Carter is going to play the most from that group. This is just an easy bet on a running back who is talented in the passing game, should be able to get this type of number, 19 receiving yards, 2 or 3 catches should do the trick. He might be done with this one by the middle of the second quarter.
That'd be nice. What about your other one on the Cincinnati side?
On the Cincinnati side, we're taking an under, so cover your ears. Earmuffs, coach, earmuffs. Tyler Boyd under 44.5 receiving yards at minus 115. He's been under this amount each of the last 3 games. And the only 2 times this year when Boyd has had a lot of work in the Cincinnati offense is when they've been in hurry-up mode. You remember it happened against Chicago in week 2. It happened in that Thursday night game against Jacksonville. Remember, Cincinnati fell behind. They had to go quick. That's when Boyd really got involved. They're playing the Jets. It's not going to happen where Cincinnati's playing from behind in this game. So it means that we're going to see a lot of Jamar Chase. You'll see some of T. Higgins. I don't know how good Higgins is actually going to be. That's another under that I might consider. But the one that I like even better is the one with Tyler Boyd. I was on this prop in a similar way last week with Jacoby Myers, the aforementioned Jacoby Myers, the one that the jeweler said I got wrong. It was right. Because the slot receivers just don't get a lot of work. You don't have to throw a ton against this Jets team. It's one of the reasons why they're actually ranked well against the pass for fantasy is because they absolutely suck against the run. So I don't think that there's going to be a huge opportunity for Tyler Boyd. Don't use him in fantasy, and certainly take the under on him getting to 45 yards because it's not going to happen.
Alex, I really feel like Uncle Dave took it to heart that we took away one of his wins last week. I mean, it really hurt him. By the way, Patty girl, I see you in the chat. I see you. By the way, I forgot to tell you, and many of you are already doing it because I have several props we're going to get to here, but give us the number you want, and also we need the juice because the juice is everything to my guys. If we don't know the juice, we can't tell you whether or not that we would play it because that's always so important. All right, Alex, I know you have a play from this game. On the Jets side, what do you got?
I do. Yeah, I'm going with Mike White. This kind of correlates to Dave's play a little bit. Mike White over 33.5 passing attempts. So I'll break this play down. This prop has nothing to do necessarily with efficiency. It's purely volume. Mike White doesn't need to play well whatsoever to hit this prop. I just want to kind of preface the prop by stating that. White has the unenviable task of making his first career start versus a very, very good Bengals defense, particularly a very good Bengals front 7. Making things worse, the Jets are likely to be without their top wide receiver, Corey Davis, who was a surprise addition to the Jets injury report yesterday with a hip. He is I think it was announced today that he is very unlikely to suit up. However, I'm not expecting White to play well, but I am expecting him to have to throw the ball a ton and easily eclipse this number. White has actually I watched the Jets game last week. He moved the ball way more effectively than Zach Wilson versus the Patriots. Zach Wilson departed the game with a knee injury in the first half. Opposing quarterbacks are throwing the ball at a very high clip against the Cincinnati team. They are averaging 39.9 passing attempts per game. That is the 3rd most in the NFL. I expect the Bengals to dare White to throw by stacking the box and playing press coverage. White also showed a propensity, Dave mentioned this earlier, to target his running backs a lot. He looked comfortable also throwing to the slot. This should result in a lot of high percentage completions, which should inflate his overall passing attempts. He should have no problems dinking and dunking his way to well over 34 attempts on the day. The Bengals are also going to live with a lot of short completions. They're also very likely to provide the sort of game script necessary to force the Jets to abandon the run early. I have Jones. I have White, penciled in for 37 completions. I think he easily goes over this total.
Well, you mean 37 attempts. 37 attempts. All right.
Yeah.
So, chat question, because we have so many smart people in the chat. So, 3 different questions, and they all pertain to Mike White. And, Dave, I'll be coming to you on a Jamar Chase, so get that in your head, okay? Mike White, under 219.5 receiving passing yards, over 20.5 completions, over 2.5 rushing yards at minus 120. Any of those 3 for Mike White? Alex, I'm asking you.
Oh, you're asking me. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd much prefer the attempts here. It's like a volume-based play. He doesn't need to be efficient in order to hit this. The Bengals are shutting down opposing running games. The Jets also run the ball less than any other team in the NFL. They average the lowest rushing attempts per game in the NFL. So it's like the perfect match with the Bengals, who allow the third most pass attempts, and the Jets, who run the ball less than any other team in football. So it's going to result in a ton of volume from Mike White, who actually looked okay last week. He moved the ball well between the 20s versus New England. He also has slot receivers galore and Elijah Moore and Jamison Crowder, the two running backs. He's going to throw a lot of short completions and dink and dunk to a ton of volume. So I'm only looking at his volume, which is his attempts. He has to be efficient in order to have 21 completions, and the yards also might not be there either. So yeah, attempts only. The other ones really don't interest me.
There's
just for reference, I'm going to come to you,
okay.
Dave. Just real quick. Dave, real quick. I'm going to come to you, but real quick for reference, 20 completions last week, 202 yards, for those asking those two questions.
That was in
Dave,
3 quarters, too.
There you go. Very good point. Dave, sorry, go ahead.
So one of the first things that you need to do is just make sure that Joe Flacco is inactive for the game. This is why I'd have a hard time putting my money on any Mike White props right now. If the Jets are comfortable making Flacco active, that means that they might be comfortable replacing Mike White in the game. So if Joe Flacco is inactive, remember they traded a draft pick to get him. If he's inactive, I'm good with it. If he's active, I'd be scared. Would either of you gentlemen care to guess how many total rushing yards Mr. White had in 2 college stops at South Florida and Western Kentucky?
Stops. So not even games, but just stops. So
I'm talking about rushing yards. How many rushing yards did he have in those with his time with both schools? Because I know one of the props you mentioned, Coach, was over under 2.5 rushing yards.
I'm going to guess the reason you're asking me, I'm going to say he has minus yards.
That's correct. Minus 470 rushing yards.
He got sacked a lot then.
They treat college rushing sets a lot differently than they do in the NFL, so I'm kind of having fun with it. And there's always the chance that he could run for 3 yards and burn us on that. But I'd feel fairly comfortable taking the under on 2.5 rush yards from Mike White against the Bengals.
Oh, I like it. I love Tough Guy in the chat. He says the great White hype. Great line there. Dave, we do have a chat question. Jamar Chase, over 76.5 receiving yards at minus 114 or over 86.5 at plus 108. He went nuts last week, over 200 yards against the Ravens.
Can you imagine what the odds would have been at Jamar Chase over under 199 receiving yards? That probably would have been plus 3,500 or something like that. And it would have cashed. That would have been amazing. I'm wondering if this is a trap bet for people. I wonder if the books think that Cincinnati could take their foot off the gas a lot earlier in this matchup than they would have, example, last week against the Ravens. I'm not comfortable taking the over on this, but I'm definitely not comfortable taking the under either. This is one I'm just going to let simmer. Someone has conviction on Jamar Chase having another huge game against the Jets. I can totally see it. The Jets defense is terrible. The pass rush is terrible. But the one thing that we saw from Cincinnati early in the year, and something that we might see from them in this game, is a slower pace of play. They don't necessarily have to use up the no-huddle offense. That's why I'm not touching Joe Burrow over his pass attempts or over his passing yards. I think the books want you to look at that number, at least the number at minus 114, and say, well, he's been 77-plus receiving yards each of the last 4 games. It's a shoo-in that he's going to go over. I think they want you to think that. I'm going to stay away from it.
Yeah, that's a great point, because this is one of those games, because the NFL, let's remember, all that matters is that they win. That's it. In college, certain teams got to win with style. Not in the NFL. This screams, to Dave's point, one of those games where Cincinnati wants to get into the Meadowlands healthy and get out healthy with a W. They don't care. I wouldn't touch the total here or the side here either. I would just stay away except for the props that my guys have given you. All right, let's move on to the next game. By the way, how about what Loadmeister said in the chat just a minute ago? Apparently, Alex, you're making people pull over to the side of the road for your plays. Because he says, I was driving home, pulled over to place the bets when Alex's article dropped. I mean, you got to do it. We have proven on the show. We have shown on the – go ahead, Alex. What do you got to say to that?
I just wanted to clarify the point regarding Flacco. He was, in fact, traded, obviously, to the Jets.
You're my guy. You're my guy. Go.
He is very likely to be inactive for this game. Josh Johnson, who has not had a start in, I think, 3 or 4 years, and it just blows my mind this guy is even in the NFL anymore, is going to back up Mike White, who looked okay last week. So I am very comfortable with this prop. Just want to put that out there.
You're amazing. You're amazing. Real quick, yes or no, Jamar Chase, longest reception. He's a game breaker, over 26.5, minus 20 to the over.
It's a very high number. He is more than capable of doing this. I think he's done this, I want to say, in 6 of 7 games. The one thing that does concern me with this prop, though, is the fact that they are playing a putrid Jets team who the Bengals will have it will not be difficult for the Bengals to win this game. I think they're going to lean heavily on Joe Mixon on the running game. I don't think they're going to need Burrow to air the ball out a lot. Chase is certainly capable. I would, however, prefer this prop to be in a more neutral or competitive game script where we can envision a scenario with the Bengals having to throw the ball a lot, which they just are not going to have to versus this Jets team.
So I'm so glad you mentioned that. Another chat question. Joe Mixon, over 73.5. Dave, based off what Alex just said, do we like that prop?
I actually did a little bit of research on Mixon for the show today, but it was more about Mixon getting an anytime touchdown at minus 113. He scored in 4 straight games, and this is a terrible run defense. The bigger concern that I have about Mixon is whether or not he plays a full 4 quarters of football. If he doesn't, how likely is it that he's going to get you the 74-plus rushing yards in order to cash that ticket? I'm nervous about that one too. Love him in fantasy, top 5 type of fantasy running back. Could surprise us. Well, I don't know how much of a surprise it would be if he got 100 yards against the Jets. It's the Jets. It's worth a sprinkle, I guess. And I think just 2 other comments. The Jamar Chase longest reception prop, he's been over that number in every single game. I like that one better than the Jamar Chase over 76.5 receiving yards. And I love how Alex, like you asked Alex, what do you think about people stopping on the side of the road? And he stopped the show on the side of the road so that he could tell us about Joe Flacco not being active on Sunday. I think he's right. We're probably not going to see Flacco suited up for the Jets.
By the way, it's clear that you're not drinking water because that was a carbonated when you're opening that. What is that, Coke?
Club soda.
Club soda, the official drink of Prop Stars. Club soda. I'm working on it.
I've got my own soda stream, gentlemen. So yeah, I just take.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt. Yeah. Or you will after this show. You're gonna have everybody calling you. By the way, Ashby,
soda stream after this week, we're gonna make so much cash.
There you go. So many picks already. Ashby, welcome to the show. He says work meeting ran long and missed the first half hour. People who ask questions in meetings are the worst. I agree. In early edge meetings, it's always Jay Smooth. He wants to ask every question. It's just nonstop baseball questions from Jay Smooth. All right, let's move on. Next game on the board. 49ers -4 at Chicago. The total 39.5. Uncle Dave, what do you got in this game?
We've got Khalil Herbert over 78.5 total yards at -115. This dude would be made in the mafia if he had done the equivalent of what he just did, 100 yards against Tampa Bay. When you do that in the NFL, you're a must start in fantasy until you're no longer playing because David Montgomery's back or until you get hurt. He's outstanding. He's had over 110 total yards in each of his last 2 games, really stepping up for Chicago, whose offensive line is getting better. Rookie Larry Borum is coming back. He's going to play right tackle. That is a huge dude. And if he's playing in the game, that helps the Bears' run game for sure. The Bears' top running back has had 77% of the snaps and 21-plus touches in each of his last 2 games. And San Francisco, the only teams that didn't have a running back over 78.5 total yards against the 49ers were the Eagles. Their running backs don't really run the ball much. The Cardinals, their running backs don't really run the ball very much. And the Seahawks, who do run the ball a lot and finished half a yard shy. The way that Herbert's playing, the way that the Bears really need him to play, the way that they're leaning on him, and the fact that this is a winnable game for Chicago at home. It's actually a must-win for the Bears, but it's one I think they can win against the 49ers, who are coming off a butt-whooping against the Colts in the rain last Sunday night. I like Herbert's chances, and it's game script proof. Just in case the 49ers go in there and they build a lead on Chicago, Herbert can still catch some passes and help you get over the total on this one. 78.5 yards, he's going to get you that at minimum.
Hardcore analysis by Uncle Dave. Butt whooping, he says. Butt whooping. By the way, Zach's trying to be funny, but it may not be that funny. He says Nick Sirianni over a half a season as the head coach. I don't know. I don't know.
I might take that.
Yeah, might be a little juicy. How
about this as a call for the week? What's the spread on the game? The Eagles lines. Anybody know off the top of their head?
Oh,
yeah, the Eagles are 3-point favorites.
3.5. Yeah, 3. Eagles 3.
I'm taking the Lions on the money line. This is their first win of the year.
Hell yeah, I like it. Especially with the 3.5. I love that. That. Kelsey says, that sounds good for my fantasy team, Uncle Dave. I swear to you, Kelsey is growing on me. I guarantee at some point she'll make a pick on the show. That's how smart I think Kelsey is every day in the chat. All right. Now, as you guys know, we have grown so big here at the Early Edge that we can't just do shows straight through. No. We've got commercials now, the very latest from Paramount Plus.
My mom used to live here a long time ago.
She's still here.
What did you say? What the hell?
Paranormal Activity, Next of Kin, rated R, streaming October 29th, exclusively on Paramount Plus.
I will not be watching that. I hate scary stuff. I almost ducked my head under the desk just watching that. All right. We've had a lot of people in the chat that are asking about the effect of Julio Jones out for the Titans this week. Alex, what will that do to Titans props at the Colts?
It shouldn't actually have a tremendous effect. Julio has not really been effective this season. He's been playing through a variety of various injuries. It's going to just continue to be more of the same of what we've seen out of this Tennessee offense the past few weeks, which is just very large workloads for Derrick Henry. And then in the passing game, it's going to result in probably double-digit targets for A.J. Brown, who has looked very effective the last few weeks. He's coming off his best stretch of the season. He's fully healthy. He looks like he's set to have a monster finish to the second half of the season.
All right, very good. Thank you very much. All right, we are 24 likes away from changing 2 lives. 2 year-long memberships with SportsLine, but we've got to get to 200 likes. Pound that like button for me. Larry Wood says, Coach, if nobody ever tells you, I appreciate you. Larry, I appreciate you, and I appreciate the fact that you are here. All right, let's get back into our next game. Panthers and the Falcons. Atlanta giving 3, the total 46.5. There's a great video on Twitter. The defensive coordinator or one of the defensive coaches from Atlanta gets called out and goes after the reporter. It's great. If you haven't seen it, it's a great 1.5-minute video. So in this game, Dave, you're looking at something, and again, earmuffs for me, but this is the only show I will play in under. What do you got, Dave?
In the first game after the Falcons bye, Mike Davis had a season low in terms of playing time. Cordero Patterson had a season high. Mike Williams had 4 touches. That's also a season low for him. I think Davis is going to struggle, and that's why I'm taking the under on 51.5 total yards at -115. The Panthers have been bad against the run over the last few weeks. The biggest reason for it is because one of their starting linebackers, Shaq Thompson, wasn't playing. They were giving up in the neighborhood of 6 yards per game. It was ugly. Thompson's practicing this week. It looks like he's going to play, and that means it's going to be harder for the Falcons to run the ball if they even want to. But we've seen Atlanta before the bye and then after the bye. They're implementing Kyle Pitts more in their offense. I hope somebody asks about Kyle Pitts in the chat room because there's a lot that we should probably unpack with him. He's got 3 props that look pretty good to me. He's way ahead of Mike Davis as far as someone who's exciting, who can make plays, who can help the Falcons. Davis isn't doing that. He has 1 run this year of 15-plus yards. So if he's not on the field a lot and if he's not getting a lot of work, guys, I don't see how there's any way he's going to get even 50 yards in the game. That's why I'm taking under 51.5 total yards for Mike D.
And lock it in. Alex, what do you got?
This play may or may not have appeared in my weekly column. I absolutely love this play. Uncle Dave, just putting it out there. I have some additional supporting facts I did want to state. Uncle Dave mentioned Mike had a season low 4 touches last week against the Dolphins. The Falcons finally turned their backfield over to Cordero Patterson, who has not only outperformed Davis, he has been the Falcons' best offensive player this season. He outtouched Davis 16-4. He continued to just impress. He scored his 6th touchdown of the season. Davis has been super ineffective this season running the ball, evidenced by a 3.2 yard per carry average. He has actually been serviceable as a receiving back, but he did not receive a single target last week. He hasn't mustered over 12 receiving yards in his last 3 games. Dave mentioned they playing the Panthers this week, which is Mike Davis's ex-team. He played on them last season, as we know. Carolina has allowed only 86 receiving yards to the running back position through 7 games. That is not a misprint. That is 12 receiving yards per game that the Panthers have allowed to opposing running backs. To put that into perspective, the Chargers have given up 161 yards through 6 games and rank 2nd behind Carolina in receiving yards to opposing running backs. So to say that Carolina covers running backs well out of the backfield would be a gross understatement. They are just blanketing opposing running backs. So yeah, I absolutely love this prop. I think it's outstanding.
I'm trying to figure out where the guy, thank you, Jeweler, where the guy is, and apparently he's gone away, that said picking good props is a coin flip. I wonder where he is right now, because damn it, that is next level kind of stuff. Now, Dane, I see you. Love the show. Love that you're here. All right, now Calvin Ridley. Last time I checked, he played for the Falcons. Am I correct on that? Yep. Yes. Chat question. Dave, let me come back to you. Over 73.5 receiving yards. I apologize. I don't have the juice on this one.
So unless the juice is way in our favor, I don't feel good about it at all. He's only been over that once this year. Panthers might be getting Stephon Gilmore in their secondary this week. That's something I need to double check on. But I know he's been practicing. So maybe he's either close to a return or he'll play. And that's somebody who I think could either, let's be honest here, he might take away Calvin Ridley or he might take away Kyle Pitts. Eventually, a team is going to have to do something to try and limit Kyle Pitts. He's been over 100 receiving yards each of the last 2 weeks. Hint, hint. When they do figure out a way to slow down Pitts, that's when Calvin Ridley's going to take off. He's been miserable for fantasy managers. I'm not really comfortable taking the over on this. I might consider taking the under if Gilmore plays. This is a matchup that I do think Atlanta is probably going to have to throw a decent amount in. I think Carolina wins this game. I think Darnold actually has a good game, but we've seen the Falcons win without Calvin Ridley having a lot of yards.
I love it. Dave, Alex, go. Sorry. Go.
Yeah, I really like this under, actually. Ridley has been largely ineffective. In my opinion, he is miscast as the number 1 wide receiver in that Falcons offense. He greatly benefited from having Julio opposite of him. He is not doing well with the amount of attention that he's receiving from opposing defenses. Gilmore is also expected to play this week for Carolina. I think he's going to take Ridley out of the game. Dave mentioned Ridley's only eclipsed this total once this season. He hasn't had a 100-yard game. Matt Ryan is looking towards Kyle Pitts. He's looking to Cordero Patterson. Even Russell Gage is getting a lot of targets. Ridley has not received the type of volume and target share that you expect. And on his targets, he has largely been ineffective and inefficient. So, yeah, if anything, I would look under with Ridley long before I would look over, especially at a number this high.
Fantastic. A couple of chat things. Rescue Dogs. Did Prop Stars have any plays for the Bears 49ers game? Skipped over, my man. I don't skip anything. I run this show. If he doesn't have a pick, I'm not going to it. Understand that, Rescue. Now, in addition to what you guys just said, Joe Person on Twitter said Matt Rule says he expects Shaq Thompson to play Sunday. He's less certain on Stephon Gilmore. He says, quote, it's a wait and see. That's directly from Panthers head coach Matt Rule. All right, moving on. Jags, Seahawks. Whew. This one screams yuck to me as far as the side and the total. Seahawks favored by 3.5, the total of 44. But we don't worry about that here on this show. We worry about something we can cash. Alex, talk to me.
Yeah, so this game may be yuck, but one aspect of this game will not be yuck, and that is the Jaguars' running game, specifically James Robinson over 69.5 rushing yards. It is rare, Dave will tell you, as a fantasy person, to see workhorse running backs in 2021 in the NFL. There are basically like a handful left. They are a dying breed, but Robinson is on a very short list of backs that rarely come off the field. He has a 3-down skill set. The second-year veteran has eclipsed this total in 4 straight games. He's averaging 17 carries per game. In the process, he's averaging a spectacular 5.5 yards per carry. He ranks in the top 5 of the majority of advanced rushing metrics as well. Yards after contact, broken tackles, et cetera, et cetera. Robinson will face an absolutely porous Seattle front that has given up the 5th most yards to opposing running backs on the ground. The Seahawks also rank dead last in time of possession, and that is with Russell Wilson and Chris Carson in the lineup, who are both out. Now we have Geno Smith, Alex Collins. They are just unable to sustain drives whatsoever, which should lead to Jacksonville being able to run the ball a lot. The Jaguars have been a mess this season. The one thing they have done well is run the football. That is clearly the strength and the identity of the football team. Coming off of a bye week, I expect Robinson to be fed the ball early and often, keep the chains moving versus Seattle. I haven't projected for yards in the high 80s. I absolutely love this prop.
Oh, I love it too. By the way, guys, to backtrack just a hair, did you guys hear what Adam Schefter just reported, apparently a couple of minutes ago, that Ebron is out this week? So what does that mean for you guys? Alex, educate the people.
That means that our pick, Uncle Dave and I, both are on Freiermuth, the receiver for the Steelers. We gave him out yards and catches. Yards was at 21.5. Uncle Dave gave his catches out at over 2.5. Ebron is splitting the work with Freiermuth this season. He's largely been ineffective. So, yeah, Freiermuth, his role is going to expand. He's going to receive more targets. He's going to be the primary receiving tight end for the Steelers offense.
And that is how a show works. Dave, what do you got?
Except I don't think Ebron had that much of an effect on Freiermuth anyway. I had already seen this tide turning weeks in advance because Ebron just makes so many mistakes out there on the field. Yes, it could mean more playing time for Freiermuth. I mean, a few more routes run, a few more targets, and that obviously helps our props. But I think that Freiermuth was locked into a pretty big role for the Steelers anyway. And Ebron was going to be one of those role players in the offense that wouldn't, maybe he'd play 50% of the snaps and they'd figure out a way to use him. Maybe he would be a red zone weapon, which is why we're not touching the Freiermuth touchdown prop. It's all about the catches and the yards for him. Get your bets in now while you can. It wouldn't surprise me if his catches went to 3.5. And what was his yardage? It was like in
21.5.
Watch that number explode to like 28.5, 29.5. And guess what? I'm still taking the over.
Boom! He's still taking the over. All right, little housekeeping before we get to our next game. We've got our 2 winners, 2 year-long memberships to SportsLine. Your lives are about to change. You won't believe how good SportsLine is. At ZemJob and at _Wink24. The jeweler, yes, the infamous jeweler, will reach out to you on social media, give you all the details. You have 12 free months on us. Now, speaking of us, the bosses feel bad. They just texted me. They text me all the time in the middle of shows. It really is annoying. But they feel bad that Uncle Dave's record was wrong. So here's what we're going to do. If we can get to 400 likes before the end of the show, in addition to 4 year-long memberships, I'm going to throw in, well, the bosses are going to throw in an Early Edge t-shirt as well. And as you know, they are fresh off the presses. They are brand spanking new. Hardly anybody has them. But one of you could, if we get to 400 likes. So let's keep pounding that like button. Now, next game. And this is our last game on the board. So if you have any props you still have a question on, again, we try to get to as many as we can, but we only have so much time. Get them in right now. So Giants and the Chiefs. Monday Night Football. The Chiefs right now. Patrick Mahomes. This is really the first adversity that he has faced in his career. How will he respond? How will the 3-4 Chiefs respond? At home, 9.5-point favorites. The total at 52.5. Alex, you've got not one, but 2 plays from this game. Talk to me.
2 props indeed. Yeah, the first one being Travis Kelce over 6.5 receptions. I saw us at -130. This one is going to get absolutely juiced. I could see it moving up to 7.5 by kickoff. So I get this in ASAP. Kelsey has eclipsed this total in 4 of 7 games this season. He's had at least 6 catches in 6 of 7 games this season. He has had double-digit targets in 3 straight games and is averaging 10 targets per game over his last 5 games. He'll face a Giants team that has given up the 8th most receptions to the tight end position this season. The Giants defense is also missing multiple key defenders. Blake Martinez, Jabril Peppers just tore his ACL in week 7, the Giants safety. Reggie Ragland, the Giants starting middle linebacker, has struggled in coverage. He is going to be covering Kelsey some this game, and it's not going to be pretty. If there was ever a get right spot for Kansas City, it is this week on primetime, in my opinion. We just saw Kansas City get humiliated last week and somehow have lost 4 of their last 5 games. I'm sorry, coach. Despite being 10-point favorites, I actually think the Giants will keep up in this game. KC has shown that with their defense that no lead is safe. I think Kelsey's going to be the focal point of the offense. James Bradbury is a very underrated corner for the Giants. He's likely going to be tasked with covering Tyreek. We've also seen teams recently bracket coverage Tyreek and really try to take him away, and that is partially why we've seen this Chiefs offense struggle so much recently. I expect that to be something the Chiefs are going to deal with all season, which is going to result in Kelce seeing a lot of single coverage and benefiting from Tyreek receiving so much defensive coverage. Yeah, I just think Kelsey's going to be open in this middle of the field all night long. It wouldn't be surprised me at all to see him have like a 10-catch, 130-yard, 2-touchdown performance. He's the best receiving tight end probably in NFL history. He's certainly been that productive throughout his career. I absolutely love this spot versus the Giants. Prop number 2 in this game is Daniel Jones over 241.5 passing yards. Jones has hit this total in 5 of 7 games so far this season. That also includes a game in which Jones exited early after suffering a concussion in the first half against Dallas. Jones hasn't inspired a lot of confidence in New York. He's actually just really, things around him have just crumbled and fallen apart. He's been plagued with really poor offensive line play. He's dealt with a plethora of injuries to his pass catchers and running backs. We've seen Shepard hurt, Kadarius Toney hurt, Kenny Golladay hurt, Saquon Barkley hurt. Fortunately for Jones and this prop, Sterling Shepard is returning to the lineup. In addition to Shepard, there's a very good chance that both Kenny Golladay and the electric rookie Kadarius Toney will also play on Monday night. That leaves Jones with the healthiest supporting cast he's had this season. He'll square off against a Chiefs defense that has been obliterated by opposing quarterbacks this season. 6 of the quarterbacks that Kansas City has faced has thrown for at least 239 through the air, and that's through 7 games this season. Kansas City is surrendering the 3rd highest yards per attempt, 8.3, 7th most passing yards per game, 275.7, and they rank 31st in defensive passing DVOA. Last but not least, the Chiefs are nearly double-digit favorites against the Giants. I'm expecting Jones and the Giants to be playing from behind, having to air the ball out a ton and to stay competitive against what is likely to be a very motivated Chiefs team. The Chiefs offense is likely to have its way against the Giants defense, which is why I like Kelsey, but Jones should find plenty of success, especially throwing the ball between the 20s against this Kansas City secondary.
Jason in the chat says, breathe, Alex, breathe. Let me say this. You can tell how confident Alex is in a play by how excited he gets when he reads the play. That's a little secret that you guys should know at home. That's the little secret. Dave, let me come to you on a Daniel Jones prop over 28.5 rushing yards, -110. What do you think about that play?
I like it. We know that Daniel Jones is capable of taking off and running with the football. We know that Saquon Barkley isn't going to play. And I know that Alex talked about Sterling Shepard playing. I believe that he's going to be there. I'm not 100% sure on Kenny Golladay and Kadarius Toney. That's something that you need to look for. If one or both of them is not there, then I think that this rushing prop is absolutely a lock, because we know that Daniel Jones will need a little bit of help. The Giants are going to need a lot of help to try and stay up on the scoreboard with the Kansas City Chiefs. This is the clear get-right spot for Kansas City's offense. That means they're putting up at least 28 points. It's hard for the Giants to do that. I think Daniel Jones is going to have to run a little bit, so I like this one.
And we know, as Alex so eloquently pointed out, our Chiefs defense absolutely stinks. I mean, it is putrid beyond putrid bad. But he did say a name that I want to lock onto right now, and that is Kelsey, right? And what did I say about my girl Kelsey in the chat? Didn't I say she's next level? Didn't I say she's here for every single show? Well, apparently, and again, I haven't seen this. I haven't heard this. We're all going to watch this together right here live on the show. But apparently, Kelsey has her Halloween costume and put it out on Twitter. So let's sit back, and the jeweler, show this to me right now, if you would, please. All right, there's only one thing. Let's take all the all right, there's only one thing. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. Oh. If there was a bar for our community, if there's a bar for our fans, if there's a bar for anything associated with the early edge, Kelsey has said it. This is unbelievable. Kelsey, your goatee might be better than mine. That is unbelievable. That is unbelievable. Wow, that is so good. Kelsey says, I've never felt more beautiful. Well, I feel beautiful now, too. I really do. Boy, that's a great way to – that's a great way. Let's see if I do that. Yeah. All right. All right. It's time. We're up against it. Grab your paper. Grab your pencil. Here is the recap from Uncle Dave and Prop Stars, and it looks absolutely glorious. Take it in. Take it in. Fryermuth, Mike White, James Robinson, Travis Kelce, and Daniel Jones for Prop Stars. Remember, 8-2 the last 2 weeks. Then Uncle Dave. Fryermuth, Michael Carter, Tyler Boyd, Khalil Herbert, Mike Davis. Boy, those look really, really good. And don't forget, plenty more props coming up on our noon show Sunday for a full hour leading up to the 1 p.m. Eastern kicks. And then at 7:20 Eastern time, we count down to Sunday Night Football. I cannot thank you all enough for continuing to grow the brand and making this the absolute most fun job that I've ever had the pleasure of working. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
Only one thing.
Only one thing what? What? There's only one thing. There's only one thing left to
You know
do.
what that is? You've got your marching orders.
You've got your marching orders. Let's take all of these tickets straight to the pay window for Kelsey, for Uncle Dave, for Prop Stars, for the jeweler who puts it all together here at the brand. Oh, tell your friends. Tell your friends there's only one. Are you going to be educated? Are you going to be entertained? And damn it, are you going to have fun on the early edge? Good luck.